Hey, welcome guys. In this video I'm going to be doing a review of the Dell XPS 13 9370, which is the model released in 2018. Now this is a laptop with a 13.3-inch LCD IPS display, which does support 1080p or 4K resolution, but I personally recommend that the 1080p model is what you would stick with, just because the screen is a pretty compact size, so packing 1080p just looks so darn clear on such a small screen size. Now it is also available with touch capability, but that's only available in the 4K model, which again I don't recommend because scaling can be a huge problem. And of course having a 4K display also means that the battery will get drained faster. Now my model does have the 1080p screen and viewing angles are fantastic, as well as colors, and the brightness level is pretty good. The color reflection is slightly visible just because it has an IPS display, so if you're outside, you might have to increase the brightness just a little bit because reflection is slightly present. One annoying thing that I noticed is because the bezels are flush against the screen, when you close the lid it'll press against the keyboard, so it kind of leaves a dust streak. Now I clean off the keyboard and the screen about once a week, but no matter what, it always seems to return. This isn't a big problem because once the screen is on you can't really notice the dust marks, but while the screen is off it's easily present. Now I must say that this is one of the smallest and thinnest 13-inch laptops you'll find, thanks to the minimum bezel sizes. And actually, just speaking generally, comparing it to my MacBook Air, which was released in 2015, which also is a fantastic laptop even in 2018, there's still a huge difference though. It actually makes the MacBook look really ancient even though it's only a 3-year-old machine. The 9370 is weighing in at a nice light 2.67 pounds, is really thin, and this type of laptop can be used for personal use as well as business purposes. Now all that combined makes it for a very attractive laptop. My model is the silver metallic exterior with the black carbon fiber interior. Now there is also a different model available with a rose gold exterior design as well as a pure white interior finish, and Dell does claim that the interior white finish won't stain even if you were to spill something like mustard on the inside, but I haven't had the ability to test that out personally as I haven't used that model. Do keep in mind, to get the rose gold model you will have to pay approximately $75 extra depending on where you live, just for that color. Now here's the real drool factor, apart from the sleek design, is the specs you can get in it. Now mine is a pretty beefy machine. It has a quad-core processor, i7, at 1.9 GHz, 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, a 512 SSD, as well as integrated Intel UHD graphics 620. So you can make this a really powerful machine overkill if you want to. Then I'll get into the performance factor later on. But it's also available in many other spec designs. One option from the lower tier from Dell is of course a quad-core processor, i5, at 1.6 GHz, 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM, 128 SSD, and the same integrated graphics at roughly $12.99 Canadian. That's the base model. Now all models do come with Windows 10 out of the box. Now as for the charger, it's pretty compact, and you might not think this is a big deal, but for people that travel, this is actually nice to have. You can just wrap it around. It's pretty compact in your traveling bag, for example. The total length of the charging wire is 9 feet long, and it's a 45 watt USB-C charger. Going back to the laptop, on the left side, there are two Thunderbolt 3 ports which have power share capability, which basically means you can connect devices like your cell phone and charge them even while the lid is closed and the computer is asleep. They also support DC in for charging the laptop itself with that USB charging wire, and also a Noble lock slot, as well as a button which illuminates the battery status with 5 LED indicators. Now this last thing is kind of cool because even when the laptop is off, you can press the button, it'll still tell you the battery status. And this is especially great for people that travel often. You just want to kind of get a quick battery status of how much juice you have remaining. Over on the right side, there is a micro SD card reader, unfortunately not a full-size SD card reader. And there's another Thunderbolt port and a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now while the technology should be moving towards USB-C for all manufacturers, it's still rather disappointing that there isn't a single USB-A fitting. It doesn't seem worth Dell making a body just a few millimeters thinner than the 9360, which is from the previous model of the Dell XPS 13, especially because there's hardly a noticeable difference between the thickness and size. It would have been nice if they just gave you a single USB-A port fitting. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so you're going to be living the dongle life with this machine. While the laptop is closed, you can't open the lid with a single hand because the hinges are just a little bit tough. The balance ratio between the base and the top is kind of poor. Not a big deal, but just means you have to open the laptop with both hands. In terms of the total flex of bending the screen backwards, it's not the best that I've seen on a laptop, but it's still pretty decent. In terms of trying to flex the screen, it's pretty stiff and sturdy, so don't worry about kind of bending it out of place if you're just a little bit rough with it. Now, I can't find specs on Dell's website about the webcam itself, but according to built-in Windows webcam app, it's a 720p webcam, which isn't really bad for a webcam, but the actual performance is rather poor. It's extremely grainy, as you can see. What's even worse is the placement of the camera. This is incredibly poorly placed, especially when typing notes, say during a video conference, in a meeting for example. So people will actually think that your hands are gigantic, probably full of helium like a balloon, because the placement is right at the keyboard while you're typing. Now the speaker performance is pretty decent for its size, but Dell did a great thing here with placing the speakers on the sides. Unlike the Dell 7370, which is an extremely thin laptop as well, the speakers on the 7370 were on the front, so when you put your hands over to type, you would cover the speakers. On this 9370 laptop, the XPS 13, I'm glad that the positioning was thought out well because you'll never cover it up while typing. Let's take a listen. Overall update, I still stand by that statement. The app is kind of cumbersome. Going back to the interior, the keyboard style and comfort is great. It's pretty silent. Let's take a listen. And despite the laptop being really thin, it's a comfortable 1.3 millimeters travel time distance on the keyboard. And the keyboard can also illuminate thanks to the backlighting. Switching over to the trackpad, it's actually great for a Windows computer. Now for the longest time, and still currently, Apple has had probably one of the best trackpads on a laptop. And a lot of Windows computer manufacturers are still trying to catch up, but Dell has done a great job here. It's actually no stuttering and pretty accurate to use. Now this might make some people upset, but I'm going to skip the benchmark scores as this laptop isn't designed to compete with speed performance with other manufacturer laptops, and this is not a gaming laptop. But to put things in perspective for you guys, I want to give you some real world examples. So when exporting a 4K 4GB file in Adobe Premiere Creative Cloud with a bitrate of 50 megabytes per second, it took about an hour. Now that might not sound great to non-tech enthusiasts, but that's actually really impressive considering how thin it is and that there's that much processing power in a laptop this thin. One of the most surprising things was that it didn't get too warm or hot, especially when exporting videos and it's pushing to its peak performance. It just got slightly warm and you would think there would be some sort of magic happening inside, but Dell got cooling down pretty well here thanks to Gore thermal cooling technology. What does that mean? Well, after some research, I found that Dell is using the same material in its thermal cooling as used on the Space Mars rover and Stardust probe, which is pretty insane and kind of ingenious. For battery testing, I pushed it rather hard. During my testing, I used Bluetooth audio output to a headset, watched movies, edited 4K video files in Adobe Premiere Pro, and got about 5 hours of use. That's pretty impressive considering video editing pushes a performance which drains the battery much faster than just moderate usage. So during moderate usage, such as web browsing or using Microsoft Office, expect to get closer to roughly 9 hours. Again, that depends on if your screen brightness is high or low, if the speakers are being used and other factors. So that means you can get pretty much a full business day of use or a full day of being on campus at university or school, for example. Like most other Dell laptops, there are just a few screws at the back to open it up, but it's not recommended considering laptop repairs aren't usually easy, especially for non-tech enthusiasts compared to a desktop. Especially when they're this compact in size, it makes it even more difficult to repair. So overall, a fantastic laptop, actually my favorite Ultrabook on the market right now, and it makes my MacBook Air from 3 years ago look like a computer from almost 10-15 years ago in comparison. This is not a perfect laptop by any means necessary. It's full USB-C, which I'm glad USB-C is picking up pace, but we're just not there yet, so you will be living the dongle life with this machine. And remember, processing power and SSDs are becoming so fast you don't need the highest spec version of this laptop. Even the base model might do just well for office work or even a student. So I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, be sure to check out my social links in the video description. Hit that like button, it does help. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.